has a comment that they would like to make or questions?
Good evening, Madam Chair and trustees. My name is Alvina Slump and I live in Penticton. I have a few questions regarding the budget. Through the chair, this question is to Ms. Flanagan. You just approved second reading of a budget which included $17,000 pay raise for the superintendent, despite the fact that the school principal pay raises have been frozen since 2009 by the provincial government. How do you rationalize this?
Well, I believe we're speaking. Oh, sorry.
I have to go through you. I think that if you have an individual question of a trustee, then it has to be made outside of these rooms after the meeting's over. If Trustee Flanagan would like to
With all due
respond to
respect, Madam Chair, these trustees make the decisions that affect every child in this school district. And I feel that they should be answerable for their decisions. And the place to do that is at this table.
And if you realize from some of the remarks that we have made in the media, once a decision is made in an in-camera meeting, then it becomes the ownership of that decision is the board's decision. If you would like to speak to Trustee Flanagan individually, you'll have to do it outside of our board.
Does this apply to every trustee? I'm not allowed to ask any of them questions before the board?
Yes?
Then I will have no questions. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the public? So from there we go to...
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yes.
The Secretary Treasurer said you have to find administrative savings of $320,000. Is that correct?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So my question is, if you had to make an administrative saving of $320,000, how do you justify giving the superintendent a $17,000 pay raise? Because the $17,000 would have helped or defrayed the $320,000. Madam Chairman, if you can answer the question.
Of course, I'll answer the question as I have answered it in the media, and I've answered it to every person that has sent us an email or a question by mail. And basically what it is that all of our saving, all of our, the money that we have directed to our budget has come from our reserves, and we felt as a group that it was something that was I'm trying to think of what the word is, but we felt as a group that this was something that should be done. And as I've said in the media also, if not now, when would we be doing this? It's the equivalent of the raise compounded since 2009 to this day for our teachers' raises, and I can give you figures on that. I have done my research as media is able to do their research on that. So we felt it was fair work for a job well done.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Kevin Proteau here with Locals Supporting Locals. If you can explain to me what the current salary is that the person was making, and then what it would be with the $17,000 increase and what that breaks down by an hour? Can you?
Well, it's a salary.
Okay.
And of course, you know that superintendents are on board 24/7. It's not an hourly job by any means, and I think anybody that's been around the education system would know that. As far as the exact amounts are concerned, it's been reported in the media accurately,
And what's that salary exactly?
well, it went from 135,000 to 152,000.
And you guys all justified that increase?
It was a board decision, and the corporate decision is yes. The majority voted yes.
And I'm sorry, like, I'm very new to the school system, like what's going on here. So currently with the teacher strike, they were fighting for raises, and it was such a big fight, and so how come they can justify giving one trustee a $17,000 raise by not giving raises to the teachers?
It's not a trustee, it's our superintendent of schools. We trustees don't earn, we don't earn very much.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, thank you.
Am I recognizing you as a member of OSTU or just public?
I'm, I guess both, but I'm going to speak on behalf of a parent, as I have a 13-year-old child at KVR and a 16-year-old child at Penn High. My name's Kevin Epp. I'm a 20-plus year teacher in the district. I'm not going to belabor the meeting with another question about the superintendent's raise or the board's decision around that, because, well, frankly, I think the meeting has done enough of that. What I would like to know is our Honourable Premier charged the boards with cutting. And the cuts that she characterized them as were, quote, low-hanging fruit. So through the chair to the trustees, or Madam Chair, as you seem to want to answer the questions tonight, that's fine. Would you categorize the low-hanging fruit for me in this upcoming budget? Thank you.
Thank you. We have no low-hanging fruit. We absolutely have no low-hanging fruit, and we did write a letter to our two MLAs that are involved with this district, and to our premier. I'm trying to think of who else it went to. I think it went to the media, and basically we said that we were insulted by the fact that she is referring to these cuts as low-hanging fruit, because as you know, we have been cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. This year, it's a little bit different because we are doing things through our contingency reserves and the 150,000 with the surplus.
Just on a follow-up, Chair, thank you for that response. I'm just concerned. I've listened to the board over a number of years as a parent and a teacher categorize their advocacy through letters and through provincial meetings. And I'm wondering out loud if the board feels that those strategies have been effective, and if they don't feel those strategies have been effective, if they plan on any other strategies for advocacy on behalf of the students and the staff and the education system here in Okanagan Skaha.
I know, I sense the frustration, and certainly it's a frustration of trustees across the province, is that sometimes we feel that we're not answered or we're not recognized. And I think that one of the things that we have to do is we have to get more vocal. I think that we have to write more letters. We have a great executive of BCSTA now. Well, we've always had a fairly good executive, but they are they're pushing the limits. They have sent every one of our AGM motions that had to do with Bill 11, that had to do with executive compensation or the compensation freeze. They have sent all of our motions and talked to our minister in that regard. You know, we have a big fight in front of us, Kevin, and one of them is this Bill 11. And I think that people should should be paying a lot of attention to it because it's shifting the landscape.
I appreciate your answer, Chair. I do, and I mean that with all sincerity. I hope the board understands that. The board and the trustees and the BCSDA and their advocacy groups have for, I would have to say, my experience, close to 20 years, followed the same pattern, and you brought it up. It wasn't on the agenda that I'm aware of. I apologize for my tardiness. I was chauffeuring children around. Bill 11 does change the landscape, but the legislature passed that bill despite the letters, despite the outcry of the BCSDA, despite trustees speaking up. So again, I urge you trustees to go back to the drawing board provincially, where you might have a chance at a voice. Because honestly, I don't think you do locally. I don't think any board does locally. That's been borne out by the Liberal government's actions in replacing boards. I urge you to look at the future of education and what could be, and I know that we'll get accused of hyperbole, what could be a drastic change in the landscape, Chair. And ask if there's something you can do that is outside of the modes that you've looked at thus far. And see if there's something you can do for the kids here. I'm hoping to see it turn around before I retire. I had a hope that I would see it turn around before my kids got out of school. But I'm going to back up and say I hope it'll turn around before I retire. So I urge you, and I thank you for your answers.
Thank you very much. I just want to make one correction. Bill 11 is in front of the House in the second reading. It's got where the House is not sitting right now, and they'll be back in 2 weeks. But I agree with you. I think that one of the things we have to realize is that this bill will probably go through, and the only influence that we will have as trustees is going to be on the regulations surrounding the bill.
And I apologize for not my mistake, but I assume, as I think most political observers do in BC, that once it's past second reading in the House, it's going to pass third,
Yeah.
and that the trustees' objections have been noted and probably thrown in the same recycle bin that teachers' objections have been thrown in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that co-governance model that we're really familiar with.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, are there any questions from DPAC?
Just one concern that I would raise as a senior,
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, is that what a superintendent earns is certainly entirely over to the board, but what is really important, as I see it from the point of view of the economics of education, as teachers see nothing happening, perhaps but except the 1%, over the next 4 years, I think you're going to, over the next 4 years, I just mentioned, some of your most brightest teachers, mathematics, physics, chemistry, English, commerce, will tend to drift to other things in other areas of education, or even completely out of education. The ones nearest retirement will move out and just take a little beating rather than go through these prolonged arguments every second year. The ones you've really got to be concerned about is the very bright young ones who I think you'll tend to lose. And I think you'll see some of that when you look at the Globe and Mail in August, September, where they're starting to look for some of your best. And that's the danger. It's not what a superintendent earns. You've made the decision on that. It's what the very talented people, it looks as though you will leave. Thank you.
And it's a good point, and it's a good point right across our educational programs and our educational district. It's not just people within our teaching profession, it's our people within our administrative profession. And I'll tell you, we're pretty lucky that even do know that some people have been headhunted and offered positions, and they've decided to stay here because they love this district as much as we do as trustees. Thank you.
My name is Marilyn Hanson, I'm from Summerlin, and I don't know exactly about your structure, but is there any possibility of the school trustees groups across the province of getting together? It seems we're headed for a two-tier education system. The province is giving $30 million to private schools, and you've been asked to save $29 million. Is there a possibility of school trustees saying, hey, this isn't working across the province?
We, Marilyn, thank you very much, and we do that through our association. We do that at our AGMs, and we do that by joining together and making motions at our AGM, and then going to the ministers and to the Minister of Education and Minister of Finance. But I agree with you totally. Oddly, 30 million and 29 million, that, in the grand scheme of things, that's not too much different, so you have to wonder. So thank you very much for your comments.
Sorry. Well, our MLA said, well, you have a choice. You can send your kid to a private school. Well, with the cost of private schools, I don't think that's a choice for most people.
Exactly. So we're moving on to DPAC. Do you have any questions, DPAC?
Our chair's not here.
Okay, you're good. And QP, no, thank you. OS2, have you got a comment?
Yes, I've got a question about the budget. So you have passed 2 readings. So the final decision on budget has to be made at the June meeting, is that correct?
The third reading will come up at the June meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and once the third meeting goes through, then it's adopted.
Okay, so one more question then. In the meantime, what is is this then, any further discussion or input is accepted from the public on the budget? Or is it just more work for the trustees to look at the budget? Is
At
that,
this point, it's more work for the trustees to look at it. It's what they call sober second thought.
okay,
It's so that the trustees have a chance to make sure that they are certain that this is the budget and bylaw that they would like to.
okay.
Superintendent?
So one of the things that we'll work with the board around is to finalize school staffing so that we can move forward with staffing at the school level. So hopefully they won't have any second thoughts around that, so we can move forward with that as we generally start that process.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to the media, and Steve, would you
Sure.
have any questions?
Yeah. My question about the readings just got answered, so we can drop that one. One thing I'm curious about, and I was interested to see the behavioral 0.5 and so on added back in, but I'm just wondering if we could break down a little bit and how much in the budget is devoted to helping students with behavioral problems, mental health problems. It's obviously become an issue. We've had, according to a teacher I've taught to, 8 suicides over the past year or so. And there seems to be this rising tide of anxiety among students to a level of mental health level.
True.
So I'm just wondering, what's in the budget devoted to helping the kids get through that? I know education is the prime thing, but you know, obviously you have some money there.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I'm having to add some, see, we don't actually break the budget down into the mental health. We have behavior, and then within behavior we have the teachers that serve the elementary piece, and then within other budgets we have the teachers that serve the secondary piece. So I'm going to give you a very round number. It's you can quote me, but it's not going to be 100% to the dollar, and I'm going to say about $500,000. Between the behavior elementary side and the behavior secondary through supplemental fund.
What was that figure, please?
500,000? Yeah? That sounds close to you? Yeah.
She agreed, sorry, I was
She
looking
did
away.
agree, yeah, she was,
Did
she
she
nodded. She was nodding.
Sorry, I was making a note. I just was wondering, which trustee is going to be fulfilling Donna Lomas's request? I'm not sure
Oh,
if you mentioned that.
it's trustee Shepherd.
And the final thing, just related to the discussion over wages and so on. Just wondering what the trustee pay level is, and when was the last time the board voted itself an increase?
It depends on the position that you have. I know when I get paid.
Just the regular trustee, just the regular trustee.
Oh. It's a 10-month thing. We don't get paid in July and August, and so it would be probably around $11,000.
Does anybody have any idea when the last increase was voted in?
3 years ago, the policy was changed and it is reviewed every year in June. And it will be on June's business committee meeting to look at that. But I think it's been 3 years. 4 years.
4 years? Okay. I think that answers my questions for this evening. Thank you.
Okay. So James.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I would like to ask why Mrs. Slump is not allowed to ask. This is my 30th year of journalism, with dailies, brief stint and weeklies. And I've covered, I believe, every municipal council in our readership area, plus both school boards. I was at a city council meeting 6 weeks ago where they were talking about the BMX track, 6-1 vote. Mr. Martin voted against it. He didn't participate in the discussion. Mr. Martin, I'm just wondering, why are you opposed to it? He stated his reasons. We have a citizen in this community. You constantly say that not enough people come out to the meetings. She wants to ask an acclaimed trustee, although elected, not enough people in Summerland considered it, I guess, worthwhile to run for the school board. But she would, well, there were 16 candidates. It's unfortunate that I would have loved to have seen, I don't like acclamations. It's nice, and I'm sure you would agree with me. But why can Mrs. Slump not ask at a public forum a respectful question? When every other elected board, as far as I know, Karamio's council I've been to, Oliver Council, Suyas Council, Penticton City Council, Summerland Council, for which your husband was previously a councillor on, I was there many times, School District 53.
I am the parliamentarian for the school district, and therefore it's my job to make sure that we run and follow Robert's rules, within Robert's rules of order for meetings. When a question is asked of the board, it is of the board, not individual trustees. As long as we are in a board meeting, the questions must be to the board. The board spokesman, as per policy 140, is the chair. So individual trustees, while they're in this room, in this meeting until it's adjourned, this is the Board of Education of School District 67. Questions of individual trustees can be asked of those trustees, but not during this meeting.
Certainly. Now, I'm not here to editorialize, so I'll stick with questions. To the Secretary Treasurer, through the Chair, you may recall seeing me at the open meeting on seeking public input that was held in the building behind us. And you specifically said at the start of your presentation that point number 4 in your budget, which by the way was very skillfully prepared, was open and transparency. I would like you to define the term open and transparent, please.
Open and transparent means that we are open to having people come and see what we're doing within the budget, which was the presentation, okay, and come to these meetings and see the outcome of those presentations.
Okay, could you define the word transparent, please?
Clear.
Clear, okay. You were asking people to give input into a budget which included a $17,000 pay raise for one employee after we sat night after night, with no disrespect to Ms. Heyer, but we sat night after night watching television, whatever Vancouver network we had on. They were updating us on the teacher strike and pay raise and settlements on both sides or whatever. And the board never disclosed this. And you were gonna wait till December, and I just happened to stumble across it totally accidentally on a hunch. How is that open and transparent with the public when you're granting first a $17,000 pay raise, which 2 years from now will be $29,000? And I'm not questioning the raise, I'm questioning the process. How is that democracy, Ms. Robert Routley? How are you answering to the electorate?
I don't answer to the electorate. I don't
Okay,
have to-
Ms. Van Elfen, how was that, why was that never brought up? And ultimately, whose decision was it? Do you accept responsibility as the chair for not making that known publicly at the time that it happened, which according to this was December 8th, 2014? Do you accept responsibility?
According to our rules about closed meetings, anything that has to do with personnel, with land transactions, or with labor, land, and law, they've changed all that, does not have to be divulged to the public. And there's a really good reason for that, James, and I think that you probably know it. We've discussed this before. It is because we would open ourselves up to liability if we discussed anything in that regard without it being something in fact. If we're just having a conversation about it, then it can't go out to the public. And at the beginning of all of our closed meetings, that's exactly what we say, that it is in the best interest of the public. It's that for city councils, it's that for provincial legislature, there's all sorts of in-camera rules and regulations, and I'm surprised that people don't know that.
Well, I accept that the discussion should be in camera, but why is the result not released to the public? And I remind you that anybody who makes over $75,000 a year, presumably Mr. F, I think would be on that list. I can read the salaries of any, and that's one of the, I guess, disappointment or drawbacks, I guess, of being in the public sector, is that that's out and anyone can go on the internet and they can find out these things. But this is, you decided to do this, great. I respect that the discussion should be in camera, but why was this never revealed to the public?
There's not a governmental, there's not a legislative requirement for us to put it out there until December.
But could you do it, could you overrule that and say, well, no, we have that rule, we don't have to necessarily do, but what the right thing to do is tell the public what's going on and how their dollars are being spent.
However, that's your opinion.
No.
What the right thing to do is. The right thing for us to do is to be supportive of our staff and to pay good wages for good work.
Who placed the item on the agenda?
We have agenda meetings that involve our vice chair, myself, the superintendent, and the secretary treasurer.
So was it your decision to put the item on the agenda?
You know what, I actually can't remember exactly what it is, but it's a closed agenda item, and that's what we did.
All right. Now, this was a newly elected board, and there was a lot of excitement. We had an election in Penticton and an acclamation in Caledon and Summerland, and we elected three new trustees. And obviously the dynamics of the board have changed with Mr. Hubert and Mrs. Bevan and Ms. St. Clair moving on. And glad to see Ms. Bevan doing wonderful work with the Goodwill Shakespeare Festival, still in her retirement. Do you maybe think that was unfair for the very first meeting of a new board with new trustees, eager to learn, very much so. Could that maybe have been held a few months? Do you think maybe that would have been a good idea? Ms. Van Elfen, speaking on behalf of the board, would have it been more appropriate to wait 3 months?
You know, I'm just trying to think of how this all came down. And I would have to say that it was a difficult decision. But as you know, we've made quite a few difficult decisions since I've been on the board. There have been school closures. There's been reconstruction of high schools. I think that part of being a trustee is that you have to step up and you have to make the tough decisions. Unfortunately, we were not able to get the old board to review this and to make a decision, so.
All right, with the vote never being revealed, as a public school taxpayer in Penticton, how am I gonna know who to vote for in the next election? Because this is a pretty important issue. And quite frankly, I won't speak for myself, but I know that based on some letters that we have, that maybe the people who voted for this raise might not want to vote for those people. Maybe somebody who thinks it's a great idea may want to vote for, maybe somebody who thinks, yeah, that's a great idea. I want to vote for the trustees who supported Ms. Heyer, but we don't know who they are. Why can't we be told that? It's not a bad thing if you voted for or against. We live in a democracy. We're seeing ceremonies of liberation in Holland, our veterans, what they did for our country, and a democracy, and I'm not allowed to know the vote. Why?
I think, James, that one of the things that you have to realize about being a trustee is that we have to make decisions, and basically it says this when the trustee handbook, that you have to make decisions based on the knowledge that you have, the information that you received, right? So if you're talking about this situation, maybe the bigger conversation, and I know you don't like me saying that there's a bigger conversation, but the bigger conversation is that our excluded staff have been in a compensation freeze for almost 7 years. And these folks work as hard as our teachers, they work as hard as our QP, they are on call 24/7, and they have been with job action. And at the end of the day, if we don't stand up for all of our staff, and that includes everybody, then what kind of trustees are we?
And I agree 100% with what you said, Ms. Van Elfen. I'm trying not to editorialize here, but you challenged me to an editorial comment. And I agree 100% with you, and bless you for feeling that way. That is excellent. But there's some people in the community who feel if our high school principals, just take them for example, who've had a pretty rough year, I certainly don't envy their job by any means, they're excluded, and they've been frozen since 2009. And seeing that we're editorializing, yes, I agree with you, that's wrong. But is it maybe in bad taste for the leader to get 24%? Some people may feel that way. How do you feel?
I think we could go on and on and on and on with this debate, and you know how I feel. I've said it over and over and over again for the last 3 weeks. I don't think that there's anything to add to this conversation. If anybody in the room feels that I should be adding something else, fine, but it's not going to change, James, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
We are here for our staff, we're here for our students, and every trustee around this table believes that that's what we're doing.
So, and I respect what you're saying, so my final question, I guess, before I ask something unrelated, is if you were to do it again, would you do it the same way, or have we learned from this that maybe the result, you know, maybe you can send out a one paragraph press release? Or would you just do it the same way?
We would do it exactly the same way because this is the way we're supposed to be doing it.
Okay, thank you. Second question, Ms. Roller-Routley, and I apologize, I'm not a mathematician. Are we running a deficit budget or are we not?
Well,
Because it's my understanding, and again, that the Vancouver board, I believe, kind of got into trouble because they were running deficit budget. Now, I know theirs was a lot more extreme than whatever was being suggested here, but is it a deficit or not?
It's not a deficit budget because the decision was made by the board to cover it from surplus carry forward. If we did not make that choice to cover it from surplus carry forward, then we would be submitting a deficit budget, and then we could in fact, the board could in fact be removed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn from trustee Clark, trustee Flanagan,